I'm Billy Hollowell. Welcome to Pure Talk. We are here at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. I'm here with Missy Robertson from Dynasty, Amber Strong from CBN News, and we also have Greg Gudorf, CEO of Flix Digital. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
So we have the uplifting conversation of division today to talk about. And this issue of division that seems to be infecting everything in this country, and we've always had that, but it seems like the last couple years it's intensified, right? So what do you guys think? Why is that happening? I'll throw it to you, Amber. I'm gonna throw it. I know you have ideas on this. I'm gonna make you go first.
I think it's obviously a myriad of reasons. I'm not gonna just narrow it down to one reason, but I do believe that social media is a powder keg. Now, all of a sudden, people who had differences of opinions that you may have never known, now Frank in Iowa wants to tell me directly why I'm wrong and why I don't know a thing and haven't figured anything out. And it just grows from there. And there's almost a pack mentality to it sometimes. We all agree this way, so let's jump on this person. And it just grows and grows and grows. And social media spreads it even faster, spreads that toxicity faster.
With a limited window, because you can't have a conversation like we're having right now, especially on Twitter. What is it now, 260? Right. It used to be 140, I don't know,
yeah.
what, 280, but your characters are limited. And so your character sometimes then becomes limited too in that environment.
That's very true.
That's a good point.
I've had that as well, you know, trying to put something out good on social media, and then people will find anything they can to criticize. Every time that I put something out about my mission trips to Kenya or Uganda or the Dominican, we help an orphanage in Dominican, wonderful things, I get the response of, well, why are you ignoring the children in America? I'm like, and I've learned all to do now is just post the link to miamu.org because that is a foundation that we run for kids right here in America. All of a sudden there's some kind of a realm of good that only appeals to you. Get out there and do all of the good that you can. Just because you're not posting about what you want them to post about, then all of a sudden you feel justified in criticizing. And that's just so, all it does is breathe the negativity.
There's something about our social structure or our construct where we like to divide things kind of automatically, right? Good and bad, you know. Holy and evil, tall, short, all these divisions. We learn that from very early age to make all those divisions. And then we want to come together and as adults function as one again, as we've been told we need to, love one another, right? There's a dichotomy there that's a tough one to break through. And social media, to your point, makes it easy to help divide them, right?
Oh yeah.
Hot and cold.
How do you decide? You mentioned that you will post something. I struggle with this. As a reporter, my stories are out there, and people interpret my stories as my opinion.
Of course.
Because of course this is how I feel, not knowing I was assigned this story, you know. But how do you decide when to push back? That's always been my question, especially as a reporter. Just like,
there's so many times I want to lash out. So you have no idea who I am, and you're criticizing me. You've never met me in my entire life. You've never met me. So Jace has a rule. Jace has shared this rule with me. He said, if you write something out on social media, do not push send for 30 seconds.
There you go.
Oh,
the 30-second rule, read over it, read over it again, read over it again. And most of the time, if you are lashing out or if you're doing it in retaliation or as a response because someone hurt your feelings, 99.9% of the time, you don't need to push that button.
Well, I love that. Well, and the convicting thing too is as Christians, right? You look at this and you say, okay, we get sucked into it. It's like being vacuumed into the chaos, but we're supposed to be living differently and not doing those things. And it's very easy to shoot back at somebody. You know, I try to go back positively even when it's very negative. And sometimes when you retweet somebody's negativity, not because you're trying to shame them, but you're trying to show them and you say something, it makes them think. And I've had people come back to me privately, people who don't agree with the world the way I see it, and they've said, wow, like that actually made me think a little bit. And it's like, okay, that has nothing to do with me. It's about trying to do the right thing. And I don't always do that, but I try to. I try to because I think we are called to a higher standard, no?
Yeah.
I think too sometimes when I get in, I have to get into this mode, but I forget the privilege that I have of being a child of God and giving that truth and the Holy Spirit living inside of me. So, you know what? Lash out at me. That means I'm doing something right. And so when they come at me, my first response is, oh, how dare them? But then my second response is, okay, I consider that a privilege. And that's a hard place to get to come. It took me a long time to get to that second response. But that's the reason that we're sitting here today, because we want to take that risk to talk about what we talked about earlier with some of the pastors, good versus evil. In order for good to exist, there is evil out there. And so we have to combat with good, and that means we have to speak out, and we cannot be quiet anymore. The reality, you know, we're known for our reality show, but the true reality comes from our Creator, God the Father. He created reality right here in this book. And so everything comes back to here. And if we close this up and put it on a shelf and only get it out on Sunday mornings in our Sunday dresses and smile politely at the pastor and then put it back on the shelf, it's going to burn away if we do not keep speaking out about it and take that risk. And with that risk is going to come some heat.
Can I throw in, and I'm going to throw to you on this, because you see this all the time, and having reported in the past too, the division in the Christian world over things. And this kind of goes into what you're speaking about too. I mean, every issue, immigration was something we were talking about before this segment started, where evangelicals, Christians more broadly, come in on two totally different sides. And we can talk about that issue specifically, but how are we supposed to navigate, and we do this on this show sometimes, these bigger, difficult issues where we might not agree, even though we all love Jesus, it comes down and we just split. How do we navigate that?
It's absolutely tough, and it's from a when you can step back and just look at it on a holistic level, it's hurtful to see the division, but the divisions are coming from real places. So you have, for instance, we had the evangelical immigration table send out a letter to the president about the separation at the border and this new, well, not new policy, but a reboot of a policy from Jeff Sessions. But then you have other evangelicals who are saying these kind of things need to happen so that we secure our borders and you don't break the law, and this is what we do with lawbreakers. And so there's this big divide. But the interesting thing from the evangelical immigration table was they said, we're coming to you as pastors of people directly affected by this. And I think that is what's lost in the rhetoric, is perspective. I don't know why you feel that way, because I don't know you. But when I get to know you and you tell me, oh, I have 50 members of my church who are directly affected by your immigration policies, then I can say, I see why you feel that way. I don't agree with you, but I see why you feel that way. Social media takes that away. It dehumanizes people. You're no one. You're a little face, a little picture.
Avatar.
You're a little avatar that I can.
You don't have your photo uploaded.
You're an egg. I'm not responding to you at all.
I don't respond to the egg. It's not worth it. You couldn't upload a picture.
You are a
I'm
bot.
not going to fight back.
But when you are able to see the perspective and to see, oh, this pastor's reaching out because he has to go look his congregation in the face and say, yeah, I'm sorry. I had this power to say something and to try to make a change, but I can't do it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But you don't get that unless you have real conversation. You don't get that from social media. And so...
And we should be modeling that as Christians.
We should be
the
modeling
ones that the world is seeing. I think the world sees us fighting, and of course the media highlights that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
The world doesn't see us sitting down and, well, they are right now, having these conversations, right? That's what we need to be doing.
But the difference is we're not tweeting our individual responses out.
Exactly.
We're actually talking, and the viewers can engage in this. And maybe they can comment on what, and we can learn. I think this format is really, really good, even though we are using a social media platform.
Yes.
It is being used in a good way in order to get that message out there and to get people engaged in it. And that's the whole deal, is talking about this, like you said, listening to other people's stories and situations and humanizing this, because we're talking about human beings, real life human beings.
Yeah, and I think the immigration example is a perfect one, because people have very deep convictions on both sides of that. And the other issue that sort of hovers over this is the issue of country versus, how much you love the country. And we should love the country. We should love the flag and respect it. But where does the gospel fall in that? Is the gospel where it should be for Christians at the top? Is it below that? And how much does the gospel really impact your political views, right? So that's a whole other element of this. And I know I've been guilty many times of kind of thinking first, you know, even on a compassion issue like immigration, oh no, I'm going to start with politics, and then I'll consult my faith later on and see where I stand. And I think that's a problem for a lot of us.
Yeah. I think that both sides are guilty of this, of just this blanket statements.
Yeah.
They're a bunch of crybaby millionaires.
Oh, right.
Stand up, get up. Well, one of those crybaby millionaires donated his entire salary. Or one of those, it goes back to what I said about individualizing people. And until we step back from the blanket statements and generalizations, and as you said, the dividing,
yep,
then we're going to keep having this. It's just going to keep happening. Yeah.
It is, yeah, and it seems like we're at a tipping point. I mean, how much more can we take of this? And is there a point, and I don't want to steal from you because you said this last night, we were having dinner, you know, do we move away from technology at some point? Do people naturally get so overwhelmed by it that you start to say, you know what, I clearly have an Apple Watch, I'm not doing that yet, but I feel that though a little bit, like maybe this isn't healthy for us, so much of this messaging.
Yeah, you know, there was a year or so ago, I hiked a section of the Appalachian Trail, and I was out for 5 days, just a friend and I, hiking the trail. I came off that trail at the end of the 5 days, got into the truck of an uncle who was picking us up to give us a ride, and he started telling me all the news right away. And within 3 minutes, I said, no, stop, please. I realized that in those 5 days of being unplugged, you tune in to the world, you tune in to God, you tune into yourself, your friend. It was a whole different experience. Now, I'm a tech guy, so, you know, I'm guilty of bringing the tech forward. But there is something to be said for recognizing that what we put in is what ends up coming out in how we serve people and how we deal with people. And you were telling me this morning you read a book that you felt was a very positive movement like that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I always read the news coming in. It's my job. I kind of need to know what's going on in the world. And it's not, and that's one of the downsides, that I take so much in, negativity, good, bad. And this morning I said, I'm not going to read in. So I have about an hour commute from my home to DC. I'm not going to read in. I'm going to read the new book from Lauren and Jackie Green. And it's about spiritual women, women who've set the world on fire, women who've made a change. Yep. When I stepped out of my carpool, I was a completely different person than I ever am in the morning. Completely different. I was smiling. I felt enthusiastic about who I was and about the difference I was going to make today. Not, let me hurry up and try to pitch this story. That's usually where my thought is. I gotta hurry up.
I know that.
Or I gotta tweet this. Oh my gosh, the president just said what? I need to retweet. I put it away.
Keep you busy.
It will keep you busy. I put it away, and I took in something beautiful. And I know that what we take in is important. It reminds me of that old children's song, be careful little eyes what you see, be careful little ears what you hear. And we're just constantly ingesting negativity, whether you mean to or not. When you're scrolling through that Twitter feed, you're just taking it in.
Yeah.
Taking it in. It's
maybe
going
the
somewhere.
Problem's not the technology, it's how we're using it. And so the technology's coming, now we have to recalibrate. It's not a matter of pulling away and stopping using it, it's figuring out how do I use it in a more healthy way. You know, and you know, even what you did today, that's a more healthy way of pausing and taking time. I mean, the first thing I do in the morning is I grab my phone and I go on Twitter. Yeah. That's horrifying, but it's true. I go on Facebook and I go on Instagram, you know, just to see what's going on. What did I miss? And I haven't broken those habits yet. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. It makes you wonder how we need to ingest that content.
For sure. I started a new program with myself. It's called Facebook Free Fridays, and it really goes across platforms. And it's just Friday, where that's my off day. I work a weird schedule. Nothing. I engage with my daughter. I smile with my husband. I'm not at work. I don't need to know every single thing going on in the political world.
How has that changed you?
It's wonderful. You sleep better. My phone's not buzzing every time I get a new tweet or somebody retweets. It's different. It's different. And my mother is the one who kind of inspired it, because she's older, she's retired. She came to my house and I said, well, surely you heard about so-and-so. She's like, nope. Well, you know, last week this happened. No. I was like, what do you do all day? She's like, well, I don't watch the news and I don't have TV. And I was like,
what goes on here all day?
I was like, how do you not know what's going on in the world? She's like, oh, I did. Yeah, but my mother just such a joyful person, and I'm just like, maybe there's something
Maybe
to
there's
this.
a graph
I can't
we could
walk
draw
all the
that.
way away, but I can give you Friday.
Yeah, I love that though.
Yeah.
3 Fridays and
Baby
30-second rule.
The 30-second rule is great. I'm just picturing Jay's like sitting there waiting for the 30 seconds to be out before. Is he a big social media guy?
Oh gosh, no. Goodness, no. I mean, he's on it, and he had to be, you know, for a while because of the show. But he's not on it a whole lot. He can walk away, but I have pared way down. So who I follow, if you look on Twitter, I have a lot of followers, but I follow like 6 or 7 people. And that's my kids, my businesses, and like one news outlet.
Nice.
And so, and I think, you know, they're like, well, what about all of your sister-in-laws and all of your nieces and nephews? I'm like, if it's that important, they'll call me. And that's where we've stopped. It's like, oh, well, I didn't find out about my grandmother or my mom or whatever. They need to pick up the phone and call me if it's that important, if they want me to know. So if I'm relying on social media to find out about what's going on with my friends and family, that's a really dangerous way I think that we're heading. You talk about isolation and cutting people off from you. That's the easiest way to do it, but you look like you're engaged,
Right.
Yeah.
but you're
Right.
really not.
Yeah.
Same with texting to a degree and all that. And well, let me ask you this: if we move it into the family, and we talk just briefly about division in the family, I think 2016, I know in my family, revealed some deep divisions, and that has continued even. I think some of the dialogue, not just in my family, but I see with other families, the way that people talk about things has changed. And some people have found healthy ways of dealing with it, others, you know, have not. They've disinvited each other to family dinners. And like, how do we as Christians like navigate that, and what truth can we speak in to those scenarios?
Well, I think I go back to what the scripture says, because these are big things. You know, to put someone in office in the greatest country in the world, that's a big responsibility that we've been given. And sometimes I haven't been really thrilled with who is in there. But I didn't fight against that person, because I go back to what the scripture says is that God raises up leaders. He knows exactly what he's doing. I have no idea why he would put so-and-so in office, but I'm not God. And I don't know what is lying beyond that, what's going to happen during this time in order to raise someone else up where the country will want to feed on that. I don't know, because I'm not God, and I don't want to be God. So even though I do not like maybe someone who's in office, I have to trust that he is there for a reason, or she is there for a reason. Now, right now, who's in office, I'm going to be bold and say it, I voted for him. And I don't agree with everything he has ever done in life. But you know what? I don't agree with everything I've ever done in life either. And we all make mistakes. Apologies are welcome. And I also trust that there are wonderful, spiritual, godly people that are talking with our leader right now, with our president, who God has surrounded him with the right people as well. And right now, President Trump is the right person in office. You know why I know that? Because God's in control. God put him there.
You know, Missy, there's many times in the Old Testament, as you know, where God has said, it's not about you, it'll be your heirs that this happens to or happens for, right? Both good and bad has not been to the person in power at that point in time. Reading in Kings, for instance, lots of cases of that, right? But in the air, right? And so maybe it's a bigger plan that we don't see, but maybe it is a matter of putting us in a position for what's next.
And also, as we talk about elevating the gospel, or I guess putting the gospel below politics, how we treat people and how we treat family members and loved ones should come above what we think about politics. And we shouldn't be dehumanizing our loved ones or hating on them because they chose somebody different or they don't see an issue the same way that we do. We have to find a way to navigate that.
There's a tough part about that, though, Billy, because oftentimes the response can be, well, let's just not talk about that, right? Yes. You know, you can't talk about that at the dinner table, right? Well, if you can't talk about it, you can't understand where the other person's coming from or how to learn it, right? And so you end up pretty soon with this whole list of things in your bucket of can't talk about, because anytime there's any contention, you put it in that bucket.
Right.
So we got to struggle with
Most
this.
of these things are not salvation issues.
No.
Exactly.
And
No,
I
they're
think
not.
Go back to Romans 14, and I was just looking that up when we were discussing this before we started filming. A lot of this, most things are disputable matters. And Paul encourages the strong to be patient with the weak.
Exactly.
And we can discuss it. We don't have to be mean or demeaning. It is not a life or death issue, and it is not a salvation issue. Everything else we can just discuss.
And maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're all wrong sometimes.
That's the key, is to be willing to say, I'm wrong. I don't know everything. And I think that is where your family discussions start from. It starts from a place of humility, respecting your experience, respecting the fact that I don't know everything. Now let's talk. That's kind of how our conversations go.
I love that. And the experience part is really important. We don't know everybody's experience and how it informs what we think.
It absolutely is. I have a brother who served in the military for 10 years. I would never come to him and say, well, this president did this for the military, but this one's doing nothing. Because he would look at me and say, you don't know what you're talking about. Let me talk to you about my experience at the VA under this administration and then under this one. It takes you down a sec. And you're like, oh. Yeah. I was just going off of what I read online. He's like, oh, well, let me tell you about the 3 hours I just spent waiting in the VA. You see what I'm saying? Like, when you respect someone's experience, it takes the conversation to a whole different place.
You don't have to agree with it, but you have to try to understand it.
Exactly. Exactly.
This has been great, you guys. Thank you very much for all of you watching. Tune in next week to our Facebook page for another episode at facebook.com/PureFlix.
Here's the deal. PureFlix.com has 6,500 titles you can watch right now. That's way too many to show you in just 90 seconds, but you know what? Here we go.
I am the man, you were the dog. I am talking to a dog.
How many times do you know the directions to your house, but you listening to the phone?